For our COBT listeners and viewers, it's Maynard, Mike, and Jeff with something we're extraordinarily excited about. I'm coming to you today from Neuquén, Argentina. I've been down here all week. It's been fantastic. I've been the guest of Vista Energy, and in particular, Miguel Galuccio, the CEO, has hosted me here. I've gotten to meet his team. We visited the basin, the Vaca Muerta, of course. But it's really just been an exceptional experience. And now we're going to sit down and talk about what we've learned and just get Miguel's views of the world. Miguel's history, if you don't know it, he was the CEO of YPF. And when he was at YPF, that's really when the Vaca Muerta was just getting started. And so all the original wells and the original regulatory environment and everything that went into starting a new basin, he witnessed and was a direct part of. He's now the CEO of Vista. He was also the CEO of Schlumberger's IPM business, which is the integrated project management, where they basically will drill and operate your oil and gas properties for you. So he's got a fascinating background. But Miguel, let me just stop and say, we're so pleased to have you. And thank you so much to you and your team for your generosity to me this week. I've just had a wonderful experience down here.
Thank you, Minor. Thank you for your interest in my country, in Vaca Muerta, in our company, Vista. And also, I would like to say that we follow you, we read your colleague report. We regard the quality of what we see, and it has helped us to understand and also sometimes to strategize where we want to go and things that we do in Vista. So thank you for that as well.
You're very kind. Before we jump in with Miguel, Mike, what's going on in the world? What would you tell us about the markets?
Yeah, Maynard. It's a pretty lackluster day, to be honest with you. Things are kind of moving all over the place, but we'll see next week or two. We're going to have some really interesting stuff to go over. But right now, from a bond yield standpoint, the 10-year bond yield is back down below 4.2%. That's the first time we've been at these levels since Trump was elected, so something to note. The second thing I'd say is we really haven't had a lot of economic stats over the last week and a half, 2 weeks. But next week, or this week, we're going to have the CPI and PPI are both reporting. And so that's going to kind of determine the pace of rate cuts and the level of rate cuts at the December 18th FOMC Rate Decision Meeting. So I think that's something that we haven't had a lot of bond market volatility, so expect some bond market volatility later this week. As far as broader equity markets, we're down a little bit today, but in general, broader markets continue to hit all-time highs. We were up another couple percent last week. I'd say, when I start looking at the market right now, I'd love to say caution is warranted, and I probably will say caution is warranted. But every time you say that, the markets just keep going up. And so I'd say broader markets are technically overbought. You saw the news last week on South Korea uncertainty. You saw the toppling of the French prime minister, and you saw Assad's government fall in Syria. So, there's a lot of bad news out there politically, and markets continue to just kind of churn on the way up. And so that's a little concerning to me. Now, what I'd also say is over the last 4 or 5 years, if you look at the average performance in December for the S&P 500, it's up on average 1.5% to 2%. That's 4 out of the last 5 years. It's actually been up. So you know what? We might be able to have some more momentum into to the end of this year. So just something to think about. I think from a crude oil standpoint, what's amazing to me is that crude oil WTI has been stuck in a really tight trading band, $68 to $71 a barrel here for many months. And what we've seen recently is you have all this Mideast conflict, and now you're talking about demand in China, is probably going to increase next year. We're talking about, maybe there's going to be some looser monetary policy in China. That's helped crude oil a little bit today, but it just still can't get out of this narrow trading band. And if you think about it, last week we had OPEC. They announced production cuts that are going to go another 3 months. That was fully expected. If you look at right now, Saudis basically discount on their Asian crude to Asia is about 90 cents a barrel. That's the lowest discount that they've had on their barrel since like March of 2021. So what we have is a market that's oversupplied. Traders know that. Investors know that. We're probably going to have that through Q1, possibly Q2. So there's no real rush. And so I think we're just sitting there going, if you look at investors and if you look at traders, The only real hope right now for crude oil that we can break out of this range to the upside is maybe that Trump moves to sanction Iranian barrels early in his presidency. And so we'll see how that works out. I'd say from an energy equity standpoint, energy equities were some of the worst performers last week. They were down 4 or 5%. Obviously, that was because the OPEC news is in the rear view and people are really focused on the 2025 global oversupply issue. And so, right now, what I'd say is as we move into 2025, we're going to start seeing budgets are going to start coming out from E&P companies. And right now, most people are more bullish gas than oil into 2025. And that's why the oil equities have underperformed the gas equities. And that's probably going to continue to stay that way. A couple things that came out last week that I thought were of notice. Chevron announced that they were lowering their 2025 capex budget. This week, that's Wednesday, Exxon is going to have their annual business update call. And then the last thing, like I said, is as we move into early 2025, we're going to start getting updates from these E&Ps on their budgets. My guess is their budgets are going to be conservative. Now, the last thing I really want to hit on is electricity thoughts for the last week. And I'd say electricity, the news that stood out in electricity last week, it was all about Meta. Meta made 2 announcements. The first one, they put out an RFP for 4 gigawatts of nuclear power by 2030. I doubt that is going to happen. There's a difference between an RFP and a PPA. And the second piece of news is that they formally announced their $10 billion investment in this Louisiana Datacenter. And just to kind of give you an idea of what that was, we've talked about this for weeks and weeks and weeks, and we talked about Entergy in the past. But what they've done is they've struck a deal with Entergy for 2,200 gigawatts, 2,200 megawatts of combined cycle gas turbine capacity. And that's a huge order. And the reason I think this is important is because all we've heard about is nuclear, these big tech companies wanting nuclear, and what they've done is Meta has now announced a deal for natural gas. And I think what we're learning is the timing of power, in our opinion, is becoming more important than what that power is. And so I think this is not going to be the first. I think this is going to be, there's going to be many more announcements of natural gas generation because as one big tech falls and goes with natural gas, others will follow. So that's kind of where energy is right now, Maynard, where the broader markets are. So we'll turn it back to you.
Okay. Well, Miguel, let's jump in. There's so many places we could start. I think one place I notice, and this has been going on with me over the last year or so, is when I tell people about Vista, and I say, are you aware that there is this Vaca Muerta focused company that is, today you're over $5 billion of market cap. Are you aware of this? It's growing. I love asking people if they're aware. They're either not aware or they tell me they are, and they're very excited about the story. But maybe just a little bit of the description of Vista today, because I think part of what I would like to do is just make people more aware of what you're doing here. It's really quite incredible.
Well, thank you, Minor, for that. Yes, Vista is a pure play public company focused on the development of Vaca Muerta, that is the largest oil shale play outside US. And we just focus on that. We are a young company. We started 6 years ago as a result of an SPAC with a lot of support worldwide in terms of our initial investors. And we start with $200 million EBITDA, 50 million barrels of reserve. And we grew from there, that was conventional production, all the way today we will finish the year probably close to 85,000 barrels of oil per day. We generate north of $1 billion EBITDA. And our stock price has grown since we do at least the company in the New York Stock Exchange from $9 all the way to north of $50 per share. So it's been a very good ride, a growth story, very focused. And what set us apart is not just the focus, is that the way that we organize, the way that we attract people, and also the way that we motivate those people to be part of this great story. So that in a nutshell is what Vista is and what Vista does.
I think what I've been struck by since being here with you is, and I mentioned this to Mike when I was talking about the visiting with you, is that you get to, for us who've been around U.S. shale for so long, this is almost like traveling back in time, because you are a very fast growing company in a shale play that, when you look at the technical characteristics of the play, I mean, this is like, finding a new Eagleford, or, I know you can't do simplistic type observation like that, but here we are, we're back in time, and you're going to develop this play. You talk about having, I think, over 1,100 locations that you've identified already. You've only drilled maybe 200. So you get to develop a shale play, but with the benefit of the knowledge of all the wells that have been drilled before. So, and it's just a kind of a fascinating situation. Now you're doing it, it's a different environment. No two shale plays are the same, but it's great that you're coming now behind all the learnings and the mistakes of the previous exercise.
No, definitely, Minor, that's the case. I mean, we benefit a lot of the development of all the basins in United States, and the learning curve and the knowledge that was contracted there by operators and service companies. And we basically embrace that learning and this knowledge right from the beginning. In 2012, after an international career with Schlumberger, when I decided to come back to Argentina to run YPF, one of the things that we did with a group of people that I brought back to the country during that period was to make sure that we give Vaca Muerta the best shot. And for that, we tap into the know-how and the knowledge that US have created at that point of time. And we learn a lot from that. What set us a bit apart of US on the positive side, and also on our weakness, is first of all, I think as Bill von Goten, that somebody that I regard as one of the people that understand shale rocks better than anybody else, said, there's enough. Vaca Muerta is almost the best composite of everything that you find in US in terms of TOC, in terms of net pay, in terms of pressure. We are very lucky and blessed that we got that rock right here. On the other hand, in terms of technology, all the learning that the service company have done, I mean, we started right away with walking rigs, okay? Something that took time in US to develop in order to be more efficient on the pad, the way that we complete and frack the well, similar, all the technology that you guys developed there, we use here. I think our model, the way that we interact with the mineral rights, also is very good in Argentina. We get concession for 35 years. We create those conditions in the law that we passed in 2014. I was very involved on that. And the 35-year concession, where we have government takes of around 49%, that is very similar to what you have in US, give us the way of plan our development, looking at reservoir management as the core of how we do the best development of those resources. In US, you have leases, the landowners own the mineral rights, you have to put leases in place all together to really create a good drilling campaign. I think we have an advantage on that. On the other hand, Vaca Muerta today holds 33 rigs, compared with, give or take, 500 rigs that you have in US. So we don't have the economy of scale that you have. I think we have the potential to have it, but we are not there yet. And of course, that gives us a disadvantage in terms of cost.
This point about the concession model as opposed to the leasing model, I guess I noticed a few things in talking to you about that. One is it means you get these very big acreage positions, And so when you guys talk about lateral length, for instance, you're just solving for what makes the most sense from a cost and recoverability standpoint. Sometimes in the US, you literally can't drill the longer lateral because you have a smaller acreage. So that was an interesting thing that was coming up. I think the other one was the federal planning, if you will, federal planning in the US. You can get a federal acreage and have a longer lease period, but then it's hard to get the permit to drill. Whereas you combine here the concession that's long dated, but also you might talk about how easy it is to get your permits and to do the drilling you want to do.
Yeah, we have concessions that somehow we also have permits that we have to ask for with the local regulator, with the province. But I mean, that process is not bureaucratic. It's a process where everything, as far as you have and you meet all the criteria, there's no delay there. I think from the reservoir management perspective, that is important in a shale play because what we know, we always experience that is parent-child effects is so important because you can plan ahead what is the best rational development of your resources in a 40,000, 50,000 acreage block. And that, I believe, in the long run is an advantage.
No, that is very interesting. I was also thinking about the another thing that has come up that's very interesting is so the province shares in the wealth, if you will. The province will get taxes when you have activity. The federal government will get taxes when you have activity. There's just a lot of alignment in Argentina around developing the Vaca Muerta. And probably the most unique thing that I've discovered, because I kind of came in with my own, lack of understanding, but it's not just Milei who's, for the Vaca Muerta. It's really all political parties. There's been 3 different presidents since you've been doing this. There's a lot of consensus in Argentina around the Vaca Muerta. You may disagree on some other things, but the Vaca Muerta is something that it seems like most people agree on. Is that a fair way to summarize it?
Yes, Minor. I mean, I'm glad you noticed that. Since 2012, that when we really started the development of Vaca Muerta, we knew about Vaca Muerta before, but this is where the development started, and also where main companies like Chevron, Petronas came to the country and invest in the development of Vaca Muerta. We've been through 4 different administrations and three administrations with different ways and ideologies and so on. And yes, as you pointed out, I mean, Argentinians, we have a hard time to get consensus in things. But in some...
Well, you're not the only country with that problem, Miguel.
Well, we have a track record of that. But Vaca Muerta, I think, is something that come to resolve a problem that we have in the country at the macroeconomic level and also at the energy level. In 2012, when I came to the country, we were importing north of 100 cargos of LNG. And also we start to import light crude oil because our conventional production was depleting, and our refineries were built for a certain mix, and we were lacking of one of those components. And fast forward, Vaca Muerta today came from being 0 production to be 60% of the production of the country. And today we are approaching 200,000 barrels of oil per day export coming from Vaca Muerta. The trade balance in the energy trade balance in 2012 was minus $15 billion. And today is plus 5. So it's a $20 billion gap for a country that lack of US dollar proceeds. So Vaca Muerta clearly is part the solution, the energy solution of the country, and also is something that can help to the macroeconomic of the country. And I think different administrations realize that, and therefore we see government alliance in general with the development of Vaca Muerta. I will say that Milei, everybody have done something, and Milei administration, he have a deep belief that freeing up the market, also we can take Vaca Muerta to the next level. And I think that is the right approach. Today, that we understand how to develop Vaca Muerta, and we don't have a problem of supplying our local refineries. We have to do what US did in 2014 when Obama released the restriction of ban of exportation. That is our gain now. We have to export more, and for that, we need to incentivize the industry to go in that direction. And free market is the way.
I think this has been one of the really interesting takeaways for me, because we've also visited with some macroeconomists and some more policy-oriented people. And I think the understanding people often have from outside Argentina is, well, when I'm able to export dollars out of the country, that's when perhaps I will get involved and invest. And what I think people don't understand is that the Vaca Muerta and all the activity happening in the energy space, it's improving the country's trade balance. It's bringing more dollars to the country, and that is going to help the country eventually free up its currency problems. So people tend to think of it in the reverse. They think, when the currency problem perhaps is adjusted, then maybe I'll get more involved. But the reality is, the sector itself is helping it get easier to solve the currency problem. Is that a fair summary of it?
This is a fair summary, Minor, and Vista is an example of that. Vista start with 20,000 barrels per day, serving the same refineries that we are serving locally today. When the local market and the local consumption of products in Argentina went down and was completely depleted during the pandemic, we were the sport to export the first cargo of Vaca Muerta crude oil internationally, because we thought that was an opportunity to create that market. And we start with huge discounts. Today, Vaca Muerta crude oil is very well regarded by the market, particularly by the West Coast. And we are exporting 50% of our volume, and 60% of our revenue come from the oil that we export. So clearly is the way to go, and we're a good example of that.
I guess another thing that we've been noticing, Miguel, for a while, this is a very big picture observation, is it just seems like the United States has been losing its connectivity and friendships in Latin America for a bunch of reasons. The Chinese have become more influential. The US has maybe not been as focused as it should have been. But there, with this new government, you do have sort of a pro-market, a pro-energy. It's getting better, right? It could be good in a number of instances, but it's getting better. It just strikes me that there's an opportunity here for an enhanced US-Argentina friendship that could really benefit both sides quite a lot.
Definitely, I think that there's kind of alignment or momentum on that respect. Minor, I agree with that. The fact also that today many of the oil and gas operators, measures, IOCs, are present in the country, also help in that respect. What we have not managed to attract, and I think will be interesting, is to have more independence, more of the players that make the oil shale bull happen in US. Neither some of the service contractors. Now, again, we have an scale things. I mean, we have 33 rigs, and we could have 200 rigs, and I think this is where the opportunity is. The fact that Milei and the new administration of Trump in US have many things in common on the way that they look at the development of the war, it represents an opportunity. It represents an opportunity for us. And I think we should make of that the most, because the potential is there, and you have a lot to add to our know-how and also to our capability to accelerate the development of Vaca Muerta, that today we are at that stage of acceleration. I like to say that in 2012, Vaca Muerta was for believers, because we did not know how to develop. We didn't know if the subsurface is going to play well or we will have issues. But after 12 years, I mean, it's fully de-risked. And now Vaca Muerta is not for believers, it's for engineers and for investors to make of that a big reality.
Miguel, thanks for joining us today. Miguel, earlier Maynard mentioned that you were CEO of YPF from 2012 to 2016. So I guess my question is, what are some of the key learnings you took away from that YPF CEO role, especially in starting a much smaller company in Vista Energy back in 2017? And especially given that YPF was the biggest energy firm in Argentina.
Well, Mike, I mean, I think we learn a lot, like anybody learn every time that we develop a new resource place. In YPF, what we tried to do at that point of time, first of all, when we were starting YPF, we didn't have the equipment. We didn't have state-of-the-art rigs to drill long lateral horizontal wells. We didn't have the frac fleet, not the power, the horsepower that we require just to frac one long lateral well. We didn't understand the subsurface. We didn't understand what was the way. Vaca Muerta was different, have a low net paid. We did horizontal wells, didn't work. We did vertical wells. And we finally came back and drilled one horizontal well that allow us with microseismic to understand first time that we saw that we were landing the horizontal wells in the wrong place. And then we come up with the units that really we have to target, land, and frac. So there was a lot of learning. We didn't have the expertise. So I during my time in YPF, I developed two plays, one in Bakken, one in Dallas forward of shale gas and shale oil. I try to repatriate people that has been exposed to the unconventional in US. So we have to develop the talent. We didn't have the legal framework. So we have to put the legal framework in place to sign our first contract with Chevron. And we didn't have the investor. We didn't have enough money to start with. So there was a lot of learnings. I mean, and we learned on that. There was other companies that also start to develop. Petrol did a big development of a gas shell called 14 de Piedra. The industry have learning from that. What I think I put in Vista more than those learnings was the learning of how to run successfully a company. Management is my forte. Is what I have been doing for the last 30 years of my career. Probably where I developed more management skills was within Schlumberger. I ran IPM worked in 200 places in the world. We have a lot of projects around the world. Managing talent, managing people, managing projects was super important. So we have a motto that we free up energy. And when we said we free energy for the best of our country and for the future generation, but when we talk in Vista about energy, we don't talk about the black stuff. We don't talk about oil. We talk about the energy of our people. I believe the key of great companies is how you manage your talent. And we excel on that in Vista. We have people that are very result-oriented, people that have a low ownership, people that make of agility our main strength. people that understand that teamwork is better than individual work, and people that have a common culture. Probably Minor saw something of that. When people come to Vista, they believe Vista been running for the last 100 years, and we have just 6 years of life. But the culture is so strong that people believe that we've been doing this for many years. So I think the magic recipe is there. Is about people, how you motivate them, and how you make them proud of wearing the Vista t-shirt.
Miguel, I wanted to pull some comments you made on the last 2 questions and kind of tie them together. You talked about desiring more U.S. independent presence in country that would help with, help attract technology, bring scale. But you also you saw so much at Schlumberger in your time at Schlumberger. Could you just talk about how you see the competitive market and opportunity in the Vaca Muerta for new entrants relative to what you saw globally at Schlumberger? Can just maybe compare against some of the other international onshore opportunities you're familiar with.
Well, today, of course, I mean, as we learn more and Vaca Muerta is more de-risked, the competitive landscape is we have more competition today and we have less acreage available. Nevertheless, I mean, there's 7 million acres to be developed in Vaca Muerta. Vista became a mid-cap company with 200,000 of those, and we have a portfolio of 1,100 wells, from which we have developed close to 100 wells. So the upside in terms of growing Vaca Muerta development is huge. There are acreage that being concession, but not fully developed. And I think that will require capital and will require expertise. So I think there are many ways to come and play in Vaca Muerta. So yes, the market today is more competitive in terms of the value of an acreage in Vaca Muerta, but the opportunity is still there because that acreage has not been fully developed. So there's space for service companies and for operators.
One thing, just picking up on a couple of those comments yesterday in the field, Miguel, thank you again so much for getting me out there and showing me around. But one thing I was really struck by is it's pretty rare when someone who has extensive service company experience becomes CEO of an upstream company. And I was thinking, we have a friend in the US, Jay Graham, who did that at Wild Horse, and he had come from Halliburton. And so it has some very positive, unique elements to it if you have that experience and then you become CEO of an upstream company. And for instance, that seems to show up in this unique arrangement you have at the well site or in all your services, where you've pulled the Neighbors team, the SLB team, and the Vista team literally into a kind of a singular unit as you manage operations. It's very different than what we're used to in the US, but you might just talk about that feature of Vista because it really sticks out as something quite unique.
Thank you, Minor, for picking up on that. I mean, because I'm a strong believer of that model. So first of all, to your first comment, having a mixed background, being able to, and I used to work at the beginning of my career for YPF, locally and internationally, to being able to combine the background of being an oil company man and a service company man, it gives you the perspective, it gives you the true perspective on how you can combine the strengths of these two cultures. That not necessary with the current model. That means the current model is subcontracting through the supply management process, service companies, and make that magic to happen. I have also the advantage of not only being of the #1 service company of the world, being part of that team, but within that team to run a division that have to put all the services together with a project management approach. Okay, so also I have to say it was fair to say that not only sometimes oil and gas companies have problems to put all the services together. Within a service company, sometimes we also struggle to put all the services together. And I believe the big value is in integration, in how you integrate that and how you cut off all the red money and unproductive time and unproductive and bureaucracy that you have in putting those things together. So to create that model was something that we we bring a lot of value and we make Vista different right from the beginning. So when I was raising money at the SPAC time, I have a slide where I said we have an approach, and I call that approach one team. And we decided that we will have early on 2 strategic partners. One was Neighbors, the number 1 rig service company in the world, and the other one was SLB. And we want not only to have them as a strategic partner, we want to have that integration approach all the way down to the rig floor, where most of the decisions are made and where the performance happens. So our model not only has to be proven that create value for the 2 companies that we partner with, but also to the people that are working for those companies at the rig level. And so we create a model and we create a logo with a model called One Team, where we make of those people to feel that they are in exactly the same team, and the decision that they made at the end of the day as a team, it could be benefit for them. And we run performance in that way. So we have a common bonus scheme for people of Vista and people of those 2 service companies based on performance and based on delivering on the promise that we have made on drilling 1 well or drilling 1 section of the well or drilling that day. And that has been extremely powerful. We give 100% of our business to Neighbor. We give 100% of our business to Schlumberger. That in a normal setup, it could look like a weakness, and for us it's a strength. And the other thing that is a strength is the way that we bring technology, because our performance-based contract, so we have the shell and we manage to pick the technology that really make a difference to what we are doing. And as you know, technology in our industry is very basin driven. So there could be much technology in Schlumberger that we don't need here, okay? And we want them to apply the technology that will really make a difference for Vaca Muerta in this context for unconventional, and same for Neighbor. So we are very proud of what we have done in that respect.
Well, I thank you for going through it in some more detail, because I think it's worth sharing more detail on, because it is very unique. I mean, I think the example your team gave me was, for instance, and I'll oversimplify, but before you drill a well, you have the SLB team, you have the Neighbors team, you have the Vista team, anyone else is involved. You all mutually commit to, what does success look like, how fast, and then everyone's performance around that determines their compensation. So it is literally like a project by project agreement on we're all working together, and if it doesn't work, we're all going to suffer, but if it all works, it will all benefit. Is that a fair way to describe it?
Oh, that's correct, Minor, and I have worked very well. It's not that we don't have pricing discussion. I mean, that dynamic is still always there. But yes, I mean, we have proven that we have improved the performance of the well, that we work better, and we are very proud of what we have achieved, and it's a model that we maintain today. Going forward, we know that we need more scale and we need better prices. I mean, today we still having a big gap with US costs. And as we develop Vaca Muerta, we will access to different kind of reserve. And that will require that we as an industry in Argentina will reduce our well cost. So that is still a focus, that is still a target. And I think today we are benefit of this model, but we are not yet satisfied. We know we have a big gap ahead of us.
So I was thinking about economics. The other thing that a few pieces that have been very interesting to learn about is, well, one, the government is trying to improve the pricing for the barrels that you sell here. That's very interesting. There's been a new law there. The other one is there's currently a pipeline, Vaca Muerta Sur, which will get more barrels from the basin as production grows, but it will also eliminate the need for trucking. And so there are just things happening, and you're making investments not just in Vaca Muerta Sur, but you've also made some investments in sand. But there's just some things that you're doing as you invest that look like they're clearly going to improve margins and profitability. But you might talk about those.
Yeah, you touch on infrastructure. That is super important. Since 2012 that we started development, we took advantage of a spare capacity that we have in the country due to the decline of the conventional production, that we were moving from Neuquén to the main point of the countries where we have the refineries and also exportation ports. And we max up that spare capacity in 2023, okay? I think we arrived a bit late with doubling the capacity of the main trunk pipeline called Ol del Val that connect Neuquén with Bahía Blanca. That infrastructure has been put in place for the first stage, and first quarter of next year, we will have the second stage of that project being delivered. And with that, we'll be okay probably for the next 2 years. Now, I think the fact that we arrived late to that one create the conscience and the need and the mindset that we have to be ahead of the development of Vaca Muerta and the growth. And we have a second Vaca Muerta pipeline that is super important for YPF, and I think for the rest of the industry, and they are leading that project, and we are part of that, that called Vaca Muerta Sur, that also is today being finalized, the agreement to basically put that in place. There are further opportunities in Ol del Val as well to enhance the capacity that we have there. So maintenance is super important, and we as an industry, we are moving forward on that. So, and as you said, that will reduce costs. We particularly Vista have taken a very aggressive approach of tracking. We are tracking an important portion of our production, around 10% of our production we track today. We get 10 times of the cost of moving through a pipeline. So yeah, we will see an enhancement on profitability the way that we switch that production that we track to the mainstream infrastructure.
So I was just thinking as we were going through that, Mike had mentioned up front, it has been asking all of us about how big the Vaca Muerta could be. I think one, besides just some of the obvious stuff, why we were so drawn to understand what's going on at Vista is we're also honestly just really drawn to understanding how the world is going to get all the oil and gas it needs over the next decade. I can't remember exactly the number Bill Van Gotten used with us when he came on and talked about the Vaca Muerta, but I think the numbers are something like, ultimately we might have 1.5 million or more barrels coming out, perhaps 2 million barrels coming out of Argentina, 10 years from now or something like that. But how do you think about the potential of the basin and therefore the potential of the country to add to global oil supply?
Minor. I mean, the potential is huge. Again, we have 7 million acreage. Vista is 200,000 of that 7 million. So putting a number to that 7 million is clearly restricted by our own potentials to make things happen. The sky is the limit of Argentinian people of making things happen. Now, if we want to look in the midterm, what could be the impact of Vaca Muerta? I mentioned that we have 33 rigs today. Vaca Muerta is 60% of the production of the country. We export 200,000 barrels of oil per day. Let's say that we add 5 rigs per year toward 2030. 5 rigs per year, just 5. In that scenario, Vaca Muerta will be exporting not 200,000 barrels per day, but 700,000 barrels per day. And in terms of that will mean for Argentina, in terms of $5 billion of net proceeds coming from 22 billion dollars coming from that. $22 billion is the proceeds that we get today from exporting soybean in the country. That is the main single factor of us entering dollar in the country today. And this will be 20. So we will create the same level of proceeds coming just from Vaca Muerta without weather risk. So it's a no-brainer. 5 rigs every year. Okay. So the potential is huge. The potential is, the restriction of the potential is us. How big we can think.
The other thing I've been struck by in my visits with you and your team, and you just touched on it there, you've touched on it in a number of ways, is that the company, there's a mission here, which is more than just producing oil and gas. There's a mission that's associated with helping the country. There's a mission associated with helping your own people and the team and helping them lead better lives. But you also have a mission around, I think your investment in nature-based solutions is really interesting for a lot of reasons. I mean, we find those solutions to be very compelling. There aren't a lot of smaller companies who are doing that kind of stuff, but could you just maybe talk for a minute about the mission component of the company and how it affects the culture and how it affects the team and how it drives the people energy of the company?
Well, thanks, Manor, for the question, and thanks for being so insightful and understanding things that drive us and not necessarily production and numbers all the time. And you touch on all of them. So starting probably from the country perspective, I mean, many of my partners and people that today work for Vista, we were working internationally 12 years ago. I was living in London. I left Argentina when I was in my 20s. And I never thought I would come back to Argentina to work. Okay. I always thought I would come back to Argentina just to spend time with my parents and people and friends that I like. But many of us, we came back to Argentina because we thought that there was an opportunity to serve the country. Vista have a different footprint than YPF, but we still having the same sentiment. We believe that what we do is part of the solution of our country, is part of making our country a better place to live, not only for us, but for everybody, and more importantly, for the one that come after us. And that's why you saw in the motto that we capture that in our purpose, in the purpose of the company. The other thing that we capture in the purpose of the company is the fact that we have a commitment with people, and we have a commitment with our people. And that commitment, it doesn't come only with a compensation scheme. come on the way that we live and the way that we perform and the way that we are. 3 years ago, and a recurrent question when I come to the field is how motivated are our people? And our people were very motivated for many reasons. One, because we always have the bar so high that we always have something to achieve. And the day that we achieve it, the bar move on and we have a new peak to climb. And that keep us always motivated. But one also common thing that came around is that we were tired, okay? That we put so much energy in what we do that we drain somehow sometime our energy, and we arrive to the end of the year probably with no energy. So we decided that we were missing something in the picture of motivation and in the picture that we, the way that we handle and the way that we work. And we created a program that was a bottom-up approach that called MOVE, where we create a program based, and in the best way to scientifically describe it is based on a chart that I have carried with me all the way and has been useful for me as a professional to perform, where we understand that when we are positive, emotionally positive, and we have energy, is the best, we are in the best quadrant of performance. When we are somehow down and we have no energy, we say we are moving. And there's a quadrant that is where we're still positive, we still having a positive mindset, and we still feeling positive, but we have run out of energy. And this, we believe that is the best, is the more important quadrant, because in that quadrant, we just have to keep positive and recharge energy, recharge our battery. And we designed a project and a program to tackle that quadrant that we call MOVE. And MOVE today is a program where we do things with people that not necessarily related to work. So we have tribes with captains where we do fly fishing, where we go together and we learn how to sail. We do biking, we do running, we do yoga, mindfulness. We go and we do charity. We help other people. So we create music, bands that play music. So depending on what is your interest, we help people to come together and to do something that is not work related outside work, but where we promote that. And then beside those verticals, we create ventures. We bring people from different, with different interests all together to climb a mountain, all together. Today, we have 500 employees. 70% of our employees are subscribed to this program and live this program. And I think that has created a lot of benefits. It has made us better. We know each other better. We perform better. And the more important thing, we are happier. So it's back to people, okay? If we talk about in that motto of freeing up the energy, it means the energy of us, then this is what drives. Now, you mentioned the third element. I think the third element is a very important element to all of us. In 2021, when we did our investor day, before going out for that investor day, we decide, and based on our understanding and based on the fact that we are a subscriber of climate change, I believe in climate change. I believe scientifically there's something to be done with the climate, that we will be part of the solution, that we have to do something and not to speak about it, to do something, to be an advocate of climate change from the oil and gas industry. And for that, we decide after a year of study that we will do two things. One, through technology and with the best technology available to measure and to tackle, we will reduce our carbon footprint. And we came up with an objective for 2026 that was reducing our carbon footprint from 40 kilograms of CO2 per barrel of oil equivalent that we produce, from 40 to 7. Okay, that was a huge reduction. So we put a capex program and we start to tackle and report quarter on quarter, year on year, where we are on that objective. Today we are around 10, and we are going to land in 7 as we promised in 2026. But then we noticed that that 7, that was believed our technical limit, what we know today on how we measure, we have a remaining of around 250,000 tons or 230,000 tons that we have to tackle. And we decide to create a company to offset and to compensate that amount. And we took the approach of nature-based solutions, and we create a company called IKE that do forestry, regenerative agriculture, and livestock with different approach and different business models. Today, that company, and we, with Berra, we certify carbon credits. Today, that company is running around 15 projects around Argentina, north, west, south of Argentina, very successfully. We are very proud of what we're doing. Our people participate in those projects. We're running in a very professional way. We design, we operate, and we certify those projects. And we believe now we have an approach where we are part of the solution. We feel good with us. That could be a business, or could be a marginal business, or could be a break-even opportunity. We care, but we care the most is that we are making our business sustainable. Okay, we believe we have the planet will require oil and gas for a long time, and we cannot sit and stand and watch what happened. We need to be part of the solution, and that has been our approach.
Miguel, when I think about the U.S. shale evolution, I'd loosely label the 2012 to 2017 timeframe as the land grab period. The 3 to 5 years following it is the accelerated drilling period, and today we're more in the mature period where consolidation and M&A are happening more frequently as E&Ps, try to drive for increasing longer laterals and driving for more efficiency and more productivity gains. And so the reason I mentioned this U.S. shale revolution, I just want to get a sense from your standpoint of where you think Vista Energy is and where you think the Vaca Muerta, especially given that Vaca Muerta has about 7 million acres, you have about 200,000 acres at Vista Energy. Where do you think that we are in the shale evolution? Do you think we're basically in the land grab stage still? Do you think we're basically in the accelerated drilling stage? Or do you think there's a combination of both? Because it doesn't look like you're anywhere near this mature stage. I'd love to learn, hear about where you think Vista is right now, Miguel.
Yeah, it's a very good question, and even though I think we will follow the process that U.S. somehow experienced, I think not necessarily things are going to be the same because the model is not the same. Okay, when you have lease there, we have concessions. The concessions are bigger. More of them, what we believe today is the core area of Vaca Muerta has been taken. Nevertheless, it has not been developed and not fully developed. So it may still less possibilities of wrapping land, as you said, but there's still a lot of possibility of developing that land, because even some of the land holders or the leaseholders have no capital, no know-how, no service structure. And this is what Vista somehow put together. So still a lot of opportunities. Again, 33 rigs, okay? Still a lot of opportunity. It will not play out in the way that play out in US. The other thing, back to your question, that I think is relevant, is probably different to US. We have a challenge of reducing cost. And that cost in US, consolidation in US happened at the end. But we have a challenge that US didn't have at its peak. That is, they have reached a level of cost efficiency that partially came from volume. And we need to find a way to reduce costs without having that volume. And that may be comparison, that may be consolidation, that may be, so we need to find that way, because I find that even though we grow, it's very unlikely that we will have 500 rigs in the next 3 years in Vaca Muerta. But the need of reducing costs is there, and it's gonna be there. And probably we'll have more pressure if we go to a short period of time where we will have softer oil prices, okay? That is not completely out of the equation. So we need, in Vaca Muerta, as an industry, to find ways to reduce the cost. And that for sure, it may require us of a cooperation, consolidation, or whatever. So it's different to US. We need to learn from US, but we should not forget that we have different conditions and we're in a different setting.
Miguel, I was thinking it's a bit of a continuation of that question, but just thinking back on the discussion over the last, particularly like last 15 minutes or so, where, Vista, there's a purpose. You've been very focused on building culture and people development. There's a technical and operational acumen, and as I kind of tie all that together, to me that suggests Vista is a company around for the long haul. So how do you see Vista out 5 or 10 years from now? Like what would define success for you?
Well, look at, we are very successful. We are in business to stay in business. So we have a long-term view. When we put Vista together, the first vehicle, or the more, I will say, available and normal vehicle for us to raise money was private equity. And I did not did a private equity deal because I thought that the model that did not apply to what we want to do. Okay, that was money, and was money that have a threshold on time, and I didn't regard that funds as permanent capital. And I did believe that the SPAC took us to a public avenue where permanent capital was available as far as we demonstrate that was value to be created. So right from our genesis, we were building something that will transcend us. It will transcend me as a CEO and chairman of Vista. It will transcend the people that scored me during that adventure. And we live that even in our succession plan. Okay, so we already have identified the people that are going to be running this business after us. So we are in the business to stay in business. Okay, saying that, I'm back to the previous question. Okay, I do believe there will be time for consolidation, and this type of play will require joint forces. It will require scale, and it will require many things. That we are business people, so we will basically wait all that things, because part of staying in business, part of playing the Vaca Muerta in the long run will require scale. and will require continue reducing costs to a different level. Saying that, I mean, we drill a well in our first well in Vaca Muerta in 35 days. Today, we drill the same well in 14 days. When we start fracking in Vaca Muerta in 2012 with YPF, we did 4 stages per day. Today, we do 10, okay? So we have built a lot of efficiency. For me, it's still not enough. We need to continue that path. Well,
Miguel, you've been very generous with your time, and you've been very generous to me, you and your team all week. I'm like Mike. There's so many more questions. As I was thinking, though, as you and Jeff were talking, there's one thing we didn't hit on, which I think is maybe not intuitive, or people just maybe haven't thought it through. But you just did a bond deal yesterday. I want to say 7 5/8, $600 million. It's a 10-year deal. So your cost of debt capital in dollars, not less than 8%, and long maturity. So that's very attractive capital. And I think that's another thing I've learned since I've been here is that as a quality Argentina company, like, you're borrowing for much less than what the state has to pay. And so it's just, I wanted to hit on that because I'm not sure people would have an appreciation that your ability to borrow is as good as it is.
It's a good point, and I mean, we are so happy with the transaction that we did yesterday. Particularly 10 years tenors, I think for us have been never done, and set a new stage for Argentina. And as much credit as we want to take from that, also I think credit to the government as well, that have created conditions that create the effect that the market start to believe in the country again. And I think that also has to be said, is part of the result. And of course, we are running a profitable business, and we know what we are doing, and also the market value that. So, but even when we didn't have an opening in the market, the fact that we are not just oil and gas people, that we are business guys, and that we have business expertise within the conformation of our team is super important. We were also taking advantage when Argentina was completely closed, and there was abundance of pesos in Argentina, to borrow those pesos and to convert those pesos in wells that were a good business, and use that opportunity to grow the business and to grow production and to be able to export more production. So we have been very financial discipline, and we will continue to be. We are very deleveraged today to be an unconventional company set up, and we also will continue to be very smart financially in how we run the business, how we borrow, and also how we do M&A. We'll be very opportunistic on M&A, and we have done well on that front. So credit to the rest of our team that don't run operation, but run the business part of our business. They are top-notch people.
Well, Miguel, thank you so much again. For you and your team, again, thank you from us. But we're delighted to see this up close and personal, and we're really honored to be able to share it with our world, because people of all types, investors, energy companies, governments, people need to understand what you're doing here, because it's very special and it's very exciting.
Thank you, Manor, to you and to your team for this interview, especially to you to make all the way down to Argentina. We are not in the center of war. We are very far away of everywhere. So people should come over here like you with your agenda. It takes commitment, and we really appreciate it as Argentinians, and also as a Vista chief, that you have come all the way here and spent time with us, and been so kind with us, with your comments, with our people. So thank you very much. We appreciate that.
Thank you. We'll be back with more people. I promise.
All right.
I'm going to show these guys. Thanks,
Take care, man. Thank you.